Good day. I'm Chad Hendricks, president of WorkPath Visas. Today I wanted to bring you through the immigration process timeline so you can see it visually. Now, this might be more detail than some of you want, but I know that there's a percentage of you that want as much detail as possible, and so I want to go through this with you. So I'm going to share my screen here and talk about all the different steps. Now, the very first step, and a lot of you are at right now, is to have a beginning qualification conversation with someone on our team. So, do you qualify with your years of experience? We'll ask questions about your family, your background, your driving record, all of those things. And then, if you do qualify, we're collecting certain things from you. So, there's certain documents like your passport, your licenses, basically only the documentation that we need at this point that gets us in preparation to be able to get you an interview with a U.S. employer. The other piece that we need is background checks as well as your employment verification. So we're going to be looking for your CV and any gaps in there to be explained, and make sure you have the employment that we require. And then the background checks by itself, depending on where you are, could take 4 to 6 weeks just alone. That is all being done so we can send your information to the employer and get them to schedule an interview with you. And the interview and the conditional job offer is what's the important piece to start your timeline. So, a conditional job offer, the condition that it's based on is that you're going to get a visa. So the employer is going to say, yes, we have a job for you as long as you get your visa. Now, this time period here for these two pieces really is 2 to 3 months. That's kind of the normal that we see going into this to get to this point where you have this job offer, which this spot is what serves as the timeline for starting immigration. So, as I show you the rest of this, we start to get into the government piece of this. Now, this area, once you have the job offer, we can file the first government form, which is with the Department of Labor in the US. The Department of Labor, their job is to make sure that there actually is a need for a foreign worker. Their job is to protect the US employee. So we go through that with the employer. The employer has their own set of things that have to be done with that. But this is the first piece of paper where we say this employer and this employee, we're matching them together. And that, when we file that, starts your timeline to get to a consulate interview in your country. So this whole process starts by filing this paperwork, not when it gets approved, but when it's filed, to get you to the consulate interview. This whole process right now is taking about 28 months as of July of 2025. So this obviously changes. Where you can see the changes for this is the visa bulletin. So I have other videos where I talk about the visa bulletin. You could simply Google search a visa bulletin. You're scrolling down, you get into the most current month, scroll down to where you find employment-based preferences, and you're looking at EB-3. And they will show you in there what date are they processing for this paperwork that was filed. So if they say they're working on July of 2023 and it's currently July of 2025, you know that it's about a 2-year process. Right now we're at 28 months, but the filing of this starts in. So realistically, all these steps in between, the Department of Labor, USCIS, which is the U.S. Citizens and Immigration Services, and the National Visa Center, the NVC, we really don't care too much right now how long each one of these processes take, because the overall process is what matters. But to give you some detail, the Department of Labor, this 989, the perm application, is right now taking 12 to 14 months out of this 28 months. So close to even half. Once we get an approval from the Department of Labor saying, yes, this company can hire someone who is a foreigner, once we get that approval, we can fill out this I-140 form at USCIS. Now, one thing that happens in here, towards the end when we're expecting this to get approved, we will actually have you do a medical check to make sure that you're not going to have any issues with your employment over in the US. If you are applying for the truck driving position, there are certain requirements medically for you to be able to get your license. And so we check for those things here to make sure that nothing's going to go wrong. This USCIS form, this I-140, This is basically the time when we say, here's the proof that you, as the candidate, actually qualify for this job. So we're submitting employment verification letters from your past employers to prove that you have at least 2 years of experience, even though later on we'll need more years of experience. But this is the USCIS saying, do you really qualify for this job? That's where that happens in that paperwork. So this process right now is taking about 9 months. Once we get an approval from the I-140, internally inside the government, we don't submit anything else, but they send this information over to the NVC. They are given 1 month to do that. Usually happens faster, but they're given that 1 month. Now at the National Visa Center, this is where we do a number of things. We have to register as the agent. We have to fill out this DS-260 form, which really the DS-260 is the government's form for doing their background check. They want to know that you're not a terrorist. So they're going to ask for all your family information, all the areas that you lived since the age of 16. They're going to ask for your social media handles. They're looking for signs that you are not a safe person to bring to the United States. So this process will take another 2 months in here and there. So you got 12, 21, 22, 23, 24, 24 months out of this 28 months here. And then you'll sit and wait for your priority date to come current and for you to get an indication that you're having an interview. Now, they usually will schedule an interview about 1 month in advance. So you have now 1 month before your interview. You know it's coming up. This is when you're going to do a consulate medical. So you have another med check in here. They will actually do 3 meetings. So the medical, so a consulate medical you have to go through. Now they've added recently a document review meeting. So this is a meeting to make sure that you're going to have all the paperwork that you need. Now, I will say this. When you're working with our team, there's no question that you have the documentation you need. We go through that. We actually have you even record a video showing all your paperwork so we can see that there is everything there. The reason we believe that this was added is for everybody else who's working on their own trying to figure out some immigration process, whether it's family immigration or tourist or a business visa, whatever it is. We think that the consulate gets a lot of people that show up for their interviews without the correct documentation and was wasting a lot of time. So they actually have a separate document review meeting set up for that. And then lastly, they'll actually have your interview. Now your interview, you'll find out right away at that interview whether you got approved or not. Now, in our case, really the approval is based on, do you know where you're going to go for a job? Can you confirm the things that are in your paperwork in your file? You're going to be a truck driver? Okay. You have the experience to be a truck driver? Okay. These interviews are typically 10 minutes or less. They're really fast actually right now. And so people are very nervous about this interview. You don't have to be as nervous as you think. It is not about somebody making a decision on whether they like you or not. It's, do you qualify and does everything match in your paperwork? It does. So don't be nervous there. Once we get to this point, you have your consulate interview, they'll take your passport and they will give your passport back to you with the visa in it in at most usually about 2 weeks, right? You have 2 weeks. We've seen it as close as a week, 10 days, things like that. So they'll take a couple weeks to get your visa. They'll take the passport from you, give it back. Once you get your visa back, physically have it in your hands, that's when you can finally give a notice to your current employer that you're going to be leaving. Most of the time we see people giving 4 weeks of notice to your current employer in your country. Once that's up and you're getting all your personal effects, you are ready for travel. Travel has to happen before your medical expires. So this usually happens and they give you about 6 months is the normal. Could be different, but 6 months is the normal. And so you have 6 months from this medical to actually get to the US. Once you travel, and we coordinate that travel with you and get that in, and hopefully then sometimes there's multiple of you traveling at the same time, so you're with other people. Sometimes you could be by yourself if it's an off week, but we travel you over here, and the first place that you're going to go to is actually the Commercial Driver's License School. This is what we call, it's a CDL. So if you're in South Africa, it's code 14, Zimbabwe, code 2 license, the European license, I don't remember what it's called, but you get your CDL here. And we have right now 2 schools that we use. Either you'll be going to the state of Wisconsin or you'll be going into Nebraska. Now, here you're going to spend 5 to 6 weeks at this school. And that actually happens not just for your commercial driver's license, but you set up during that time your bank account. After you arrive, you'll get your social security number in about 10 days. You'll get your regular driver's license. You'll get your cell phone, all the things kind of in line that you need to be set up for success. You spend a lot of time watching videos, doing the training so you can pass the test for the CDL, the written test. And then you'll also be there getting in a truck, making sure that you're driving on the different side of the road for a lot of you than what you were, and getting used to what that is, especially when there's traffic coming from the left or the right and it's coming from the different side of the road than what you're used to. So it's giving you some time to get your brain trained into that. After you spend that time, we then work on the transportation to get you over to your employer. Typically, they will spend 2 weeks with you doing some training. Once that two weeks is over, they say, yes, you're a safe driver and we trust you. They will now let you go out and solo drive yourself. So that is the entire process that we have. Now, the only thing that we have additional on there is this lasts for about 3 years. So you have a 3-year contract. Once you complete that 3-year contract, we refund you half of the money that you paid into the program. So essentially, it's a contract completion bonus to say, yes, you fulfilled all your obligations, and now you get this money back. So that is the complete picture of that. Now, family-wise, there's one thing that we talk about with family. We do not recommend that you have your family come immediately when you come, because you're going to the CDL school. At the CDL school, there's no housing for your family. They're going to be bored. They don't even know what to do here. We suggest that your family comes after you arrive at your employer, after the training, and after you're out on the road solo. This is when your family should be arriving if they're going to be coming with you shortly afterwards. Now, this all has to be, once again, within the 6-month time frame of this medical check. That's when we want them to come over. We do not want them to have to redo a medical later to get an extended expiration date, but we could if we had to. So hopefully that is a good overview of the entire immigration process. And if you do have any questions, obviously let our team know. We have a number of ways for you to connect with us. If you've already had the conversation, you know you're already qualifying with us, you have our support numbers from WhatsApp to be able to reach out to someone and text them a message and say, hey, I have some questions on this. If you have any questions, you can put those in the comments and we'll ask about and we can answer those.